Andre Onana is on a flight to Turkey. By the time this video is out, that flight probably would have landed. This is to complete his move. Even though it's a loan move, it has been reported that there's no way back for Andre Onana at Manchester United. And apparently one of the reasons there's no way back for Onana is because of what went down behind the scenes with Ruben Amorim. Of course, Ruben Amorim was not happy when Onana asked for a pay rise. Of course, Ruben Amorim hasn't been happy with Onana's recent performances. But there is reports, speculation, and rumours that when Onana was dropped for Bayern after the Fulham game, Onana's attitude in training changed. Onana was not as committed and was annoyed with Amorim and started to refuse to acknowledge him and act up. We will talk about the latest on that. And look, Ruben Amorim's been brutal with players, and we're going to talk about why players fear Ruben Amorim and more. There is a report that apparently Manchester United were offered Adam Wharton in the summer for 60 million. I don't believe that. I think if someone had gone to us last month and said you can have Adam Wharton for 60 million or you don't sign a midfielder, I think we would have taken Adam Wharton for 60 million. I don't think Palace would have sold him for that cheap, but we will discuss that, but I don't think it's true. Malacia, there's obviously a lot of clubs interested in Malacia in Turkey and Saudi. There's a club in Turkey, that's a name I cannot pronounce, that showed interest in Malacia yesterday, but apparently Malacia is not keen on the move. And then I want to talk about Bruno Fernandes and still why I think he's key to this season. Even if he doesn't fit the system, even if he doesn't fit the long-term plans, I think there's a bit of disrespect on Bruno and the role that he's going to play this season. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your live 10-minute Manchester United news and transfer update show where we discuss all the latest news going about. So Simon Stone, a very good journalist, has said that Andre Onana is heading to Turkey from Paris today to complete his loan move to Trabzonspor. That move is expected to be done unless he fails a medical. Apparently Onana had a few clubs interested in him earlier in the window, but actually turned down clubs earlier in the window because he thought it was going to be Man United's number one. He turned down Monaco. And then once he found out he wasn't going to be Man United's number one, and Ruben Amorim wasn't just saying that, and that Bayern was number one, and then Lemens is coming in, he's going to be number three, he decided to move to Turkey, where of course he does also get more money. Apparently one of the reasons behind Onana wanting more money isn't just because he wants more money, but because he actually does do a lot of work over in Cameroon, to be fair to him, and does a lot of charity work. And look, Onana's not been good enough at Man United. He's been a bit of a prat in goal. That is his nickname. Everyone keeps calling him. Was it Pratman? Is it Goldbridge that said that? He's not been the best goalkeeper for United, but I do think he gets a lot of abuse, and I don't agree with the abuse and people swarming him. I hope he does well in Turkey. I'm glad he's gone. He was a liability in the back of the net, and I wish him the best in Turkey. But he didn't have the best attitude, in my opinion, if this is to be correct. Now, this has come from The Sun, and I always say take what's been said by The Sun with a pinch of salt, but we've also heard similar stories of a similar ilk from more credible sources, which suggests I think something's gone down with Amorim and Onana, potentially, which changed Onana's mind, maybe into going to Turkey, or maybe the fact that he really realised he wasn't going to be number one and wasn't going to get minutes. He's gone to Turkey. I think Højlund and Onana, two players that wanted to stay, rejected moves earlier in the window because they wanted to stay and play for United, realised they weren't going to play, weren't going to get the minutes, and are now doing loan moves. But apparently the relationship with Amorim collapsed before sealing a move to Trabzonspor. Apparently Onana showed little interest or involvement in training, even refusing to acknowledge Amorim. Now this came after he was dropped. He was quite committed the minute he was dropped. The last week or so of training, apparently he's just not shown any interest or involvement, which is very bad. And there was a report, I think it came from The Athletic or someone credible, that United wanted Onana out because they didn't want any distractions for Lemens. So maybe that was his suggestion that Onana probably wasn't the best training influence. He didn't seem involved. He didn't seem interested because he knew he wasn't going to be number one, and he knew he was now looking at a way out. And I think if that is the case, that's what you got to do. There was the bomb squad that couldn't train separately for a reason because the heart wasn't at Manchester United. If your heart's not at Manchester United, you've got no way back. Garnacho, Rashford, Anthony, the heart was not at Manchester United. They got no way back. Sancho doesn't care about the club. They got no way back. Højlund did care about the club, which is why he was never in the bomb squad. And I think Onana was not in the bomb squad because of obviously what went down, but then became in the bomb squad because his heart's not at United. We obviously know there was a report the other day that obviously Onana was playing in a very muddy pitch in Cameroon, and then a few days later got a hamstring injury, and Amorim was not happy to see that Onana hadn't been looking after himself and playing in a muddy pitch in Cameroon, and came back for pre-season, getting injured, not fit, obviously put Onana at a disadvantage. He didn't play in pre-season, which is maybe a bigger reason behind Bayendier being number one potentially as well. But then Onana got his opportunity versus Grimsby and he was horrific. So I think, we signed Lemens because Onana and Bayendier aren't good enough. I think Onana's injury before pre-season probably didn't help him. But I think Ruben Amorim deliberately played Bayendier ahead of Onana and told Onana he wasn't going to be number one to get Onana to change his mind and go. And it looks like Onana started to become a negative influence, and Amorim wants to remove all negative influences from Man United. Continuing on, so why do players now fear Ruben Amorim because of this? Why do I think Ruben Amorim has, even though there's uncertainty around his job, has a certain level of control? Big names like Rashford, Sancho, Garnacho, Anthony, Højlund and Onana have all been forced out or dropped by Amorim. 4 of them are put in the bomb squad and forced out. The other 2 basically just had replacements brought for them, told you're not going to play, so leave. And I think players at Man United have realised that they've got to perform under Amorim or they're going to be forced out next summer and their replacements are going to be brought next summer. And then they're not going to play. Of course, the World Cup year does help force people out. Now, if Amorim doesn't see a tactical fit, or if Amorim doesn't see effort, or Amorim doesn't think you're good enough, regardless of your price tag, your reputation, your contract, he will want you gone. And Ineos also want that. Onana's relationship with Amorim has collapsed. He was accused of showing little interest in training, refused to acknowledge Amorim apparently, and Onana, who, 2 months ago, there's reports that Amorim was happy with him and he was going to stay and be number one, which I did say was PR reports because I've known for ages Amorim wanted a new goalkeeper. Now that Onana's acting the way he was, he's now out the door. And I think there's a message to the squad, Maguire and Casemiro, I think, are going to be a key part. But it doesn't look like we're going to renew their contracts this season. Maybe if there's a wage cut, and they could be key players this season. Ineos and Amorim are telling players, if you're on high wages or if you don't perform, you don't have a future here unless you justify being on those wages or unless you perform. And, that's put some United players in fear about their future. And I think that's a good thing. It shows there's a standard now at the club and we've let the standards drop at this club for too long. And I think Amorim has the full support of those above him to call those shots on ending player power. I don't know, how much support he has in the sense of time, because if results don't go well, he might be sacked by November. But I think a lot of this is influenced by Ineos, who are more than backing Amorim to get rid of high wage earners or people that are causing issues. So I want to quickly talk about a few other stories going about, because there is a report on Adam Wharton. It was said by Team Talk, and I read this via the OneFootball app, via the People's Person, many things on United's midfield plans, which I'm going to share below here. Amorim wants a new midfielder urgently, despite having Bruno, Casemiro, Agate. Maino, we need a new midfielder. Agate is a liability, Casemiro's legs are gone, Onana and Bruno don't fully suit the system. Baleba is the preferred option, but Brighton are unlikely to sell in January. Romano has spoken about us going back in for Baleba in January, still wanting the player and the player still wanting the move. So you have to keep an eye on that. But Adam Wharton is back on the agenda after impressing at Crystal Palace. So Adam Wharton is back on the agenda of impressing Crystal Palace. I think Wharton replaces Bruno, Baleba replaces Casemiro, bish bash bosh. But United previously walked away from Palace's 60 million asking price in the summer. Now, this was said by Team Talk. I don't think Team Talk are a good source of information. I don't believe that Palace would have sold Adam Wharton this summer, especially for 60 million, because they lost Eze, they almost lost Gay, they were expected to lose Gay. I think Adam Wharton will go for 100 million next summer. I think Newcastle, I think Liverpool, I think Real Madrid, I think all the top clubs are going to be in for Adam Wharton, and I have a feeling we're not going to be able to get Adam Wharton next summer. I think he's a good player, and I think if we were offered Adam Wharton for 60 million, I think we would have done it. So I personally don't believe that Adam Wharton was offered to us for 60 million. In terms of other news, it was also said by Sansi that United looked at Malik Fofana in the final days of the window. Obviously, connections to George Mendes has connections to United, and that Fofana was tempted by a move to Man United, but a green light never came. Apparently, there's interest in Fofana. I think in the summer we will be signing 2 big midfielders, and I think another attacker with pace and a centre back. I think the ideal summer is Wharton, Baleba, Semenyo, and a good centre back next year. I think that's what we'll probably look to do. But we'll have to wait and see. But apparently Malik Fofana could be on that list. Tyrell Malacia, what is the latest on Tyrell Malacia? He's the last of the bomb squad left. Tyrell Malacia leaving in the coming days is a possibility. Nothing agreed or done yet, but several clubs abroad are showing interest in him, said Romano. I think Tyrell Malacia will leave. Obviously, he's not rushing any decision, but I think he will eventually leave to get minutes. And then I wanted to quickly talk about Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes is our best player, but he doesn't fully suit the system. And sometimes he can be a liability in that role for us, but he's such a good player that we're so much worse without Bruno. And I don't think people realise that. Does he fully suit the system? No. But are we 10 times worse when we play without Bruno? Yes. And even this season, Bruno is first for shot creating actions, first for possession one, first for chances created, and first for chances created in open play. He's already the top chance creator. He's already top for possession one. Bruno Fernandes is a monster of a player, and I think he deserves more credit for that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Bye.